Hey there, welcome to Millennium Milestone Presents, a site dedicated to storytelling in books, movies, video games, and other exciting genres. Hoping you'll like, share, and subscribe before someone blows your head off. Oops, guess we spoke too soon. Well, in case some of you might have not realized it and it just snuck up on you, we just got to the end of The Last of Us Season 2. And by God, do we got a lot to talk about here as Bella Ramsey and company show us how it's done in live action. And for those of you that are living under a rock and probably missed the episodes leading up to this, I'll just do a quick little recap, starting with episode 3, where Dina and Ellie travel from Jackson to go after Abby, and basically with murder in their eyes and revenge to take on the Salt Lake City crew. They set up camp in a movie theater in Seattle and finally begin to map out the entire area, which leads them to a abandoned TV station where they think they can find one of their leads to finding Abby, the killer of Joel. Of course, troubles follows them not too long after that when they find that the members of the WLF there are murdered by very homicidal-looking religious groups known as the Scars. This leads into a skirmish with the other group, the WLF, who thinks they're the killers, and makes them run all the way down to the underterrains of Seattle, where, of course, they run into infected and nearly get killed by them as well. This also leads into Ellie being bitten in front of Dina, which questions this and is about to have her gun out and kill Ellie at the theater when they escape out of this mess. Ellie, of course, has to convince her that she is not infected and that she's immune, and for a whole night spent on the couch doing so. Finally convinced that Ellie is immune and not a danger to her, Dina also reveals another little surpriser for her. She's pregnant.
I'm gonna be a dad.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The group, once again, continues on their trek to find Abby and venture to another section of Seattle to find more clues. That section involves Nora, one of Abby's close friends who's working at a hospital. To get to said hospital, daylight was definitely not an option as they did not want to be killed by more WLF. So, the cover of night it is. They venture into a warehouse to try and get a little further out into that section. However, they are met with another problem, aka the stalkers, the smart hunting kind that know how to run and hide and duck anywhere before going after their prey. Near death experience and a gunshot to later, they are met by a little bit of help from none other than, not Tommy, but Jesse, who comes to the rescue and gets them out of there quickly and fast. The three of them trek over to a park nearby where they're met with an even bigger danger. Lo and behold, the Scars. An arrow into the knee later, all three are split up, and Ellie makes it to the hospital by herself where she finally gets her confrontation with Nora. This, of course, leads into one very wrong barb that Nora throws right at Ellie, who, out of anger, leads to a chase scene where they're running through the hospital, getting shot at, as Ellie eventually corners her when she falls down into a shaft into, and something else I forgot to mention. Spores are now finally introduced in The Last of Us. Hint, hint. So, of course, Nora falls into that very section of the hospital where there just happens to be spores there, and now she's infected and discovers for the first time that Ellie is definitely not infected. And this, of course, leads into one of the most gruesome, brutal scenes from the video game, Ellie's interrogation of Nora by crowbar. I'll let the imagination tell you the rest. But that part of the episode doesn't end, of course. We get a quick flashback to Ellie back in Jacksonville with One Last Time with Joel, starring Pedro Pascal. We so miss him, don't we? But here we are in that next episode, and of course we get a year or two of Ellie's birthdays, where each one progresses to what led up to Ellie finding out the truth about Joel. Which this scene comes up into the last moments when Eugene, on patrol with another partner, is bit. And Ellie follows suit with Joel, who had allowed her to finally go on patrol with her for the first time. This, of course, leads to them having to make the decision to kill Eugene, which Ellie protests at first. Of course, Joel, being Joel, had to lie to her and tells her to go back and get the horse while he got Eugene ready to head back to the fort and at least say goodbye to his wife. Which that lie, of course, leads to him leading him over to the lake, having Eugene remember his wife for one last time before shooting him. This, of course, leads to Joel bringing his body back to Jacksonville and Eugene's wife coming to see the body, Joel lying to her face what happened, where Eugene was a brave man who actually killed himself rather than go back to the fort and possibly kill somebody at Jacksonville. Ellie, of course, protests this and tells the truth, and this leads, of course, to Joel finally feeling remorse for a lot of the things he did early on. Then we flash over to the New Year's ball that was celebrated in Jacksonville before Joel's death the next night, and here we flash back to the scene where Joel was playing his guitar as Ellie was returning from the party after they had their argument. Here, in this particular moment, Ellie returns and finally just lays out at Joel that she knows that he's lying to her about what happened in Salt Lake City. Finally, the truth comes out. The two of them make amends for that most part, but that is pretty much the end of Joel's story from that point onward as we venture into the main story. And now we venture back into episode 7, the final episode for the entire series. Ellie returns to the theater, of course. Jesse asks questions about the blood on her, but she doesn't give him any answers, but goes straight to Dina to see how she's doing after the arrow that was shot into her knee. She reveals to Dina that she nearly killed Nora, but left her basically to die with her wounds as well as the infection, as more of a way to punish her for what she did to her. After talking for a bit about what happened, Ellie reveals to Dina for the first time what really happened in Salt Lake City with Joel, and that he actually killed everyone there to save Ellie. This definitely changes Dina's perspective about their reasons for going after Abby, and leaves her almost speechless to say anything about it at the moment. The next day, it's agreed that Jesse and Ellie need to venture out to find Tommy at the rendezvous point and to get back together to escape Seattle. So the two of them head off afterwards, leaving Dina behind, and eventually make it there, but don't find Tommy there at all. So they waited out in hopes that maybe he'll show up somewhere else. In the meantime, in this situation, a Scar is chased by members of the WLF and nearly convinces Ellie to go hero in the situation, save the Scar, but Jesse's not having it, as this is not their fight and they need to focus on escaping Seattle and not getting in trouble. He also reveals in this venture that he knows that Dina is pregnant and that even more so, he needs to get everybody out of here. All this leads to an impasse between Ellie and Jesse when they discover that Tommy is over by the marina pinned down by WLF soldiers. While there's no proof that Tommy is actually out there, Ellie insists on going to the aquarium, where she notices, as they're spotting the location of Tommy, that the clue that Nora had given her, which was the whale at the aquarium, is where possibly Abby is. And for that reason, Ellie argues with Jesse, insisting that they go there instead of going after Tommy. Jesse basically says to her that I hope she survives, and walks away, leaving her to her own devices, as he doesn't agree with her decision.
I really hope you make it.
And of course, girl boss Ellie does what she does best and tries to do anything by herself, as she finally at least finds a boat that leads to the marina on the other side of Seattle. She hops onto it, and of course, lo and behold, she gets hit by a tidal wave that throws her all the way over to an island which conveniently has Scars living on it. She nearly gets hung there and nearly dies, but of course, there's the sounding of an alarm and of attack going on the island, which saves Ellie and gives her the plot armor she needs to go back and go after Abby at this point. Ellie finally reaches her destination and finds her way up the top of the marina, or the aquarium I should say, and manages to get inside, where she notices clues and hints that something had transpired here, and it becomes almost increasingly evident that Abby is just simply not here and she had just missed her. However, she does hear voices that leads her to at least more clues, hopefully, of finding Abby. This happens to be Owen and Mel, who are having an argument that seems to indicate that Owen knows where Abby actually is. This leads to a confrontation where Ellie, guns drawn, demands that Owen tells her where Abby is. This, of course, leads to a chaotic moment where Ellie fires a shot at Owen when he tries to shoot her and accidentally kills Mel, who is discovered to be pregnant as well. This traumatic moment spirals Ellie emotionally out of control and is just completely shocked at sitting there watching as Mel dies in front of her, unable to save her unborn child. Jesse and Tommy finally arrive, finding Ellie at the aquarium and bring her back to the theater at the rendezvous point along with Dina there to finally plan out getting out of Seattle altogether. Everybody goes their separate ways and live happily after, and that's the end of the story for season 2. So, I'm sorry, what was that? Do I have to release it? Okay, fine. Well, let's tell them what happened. Yep, they don't build male protagonistic heroes like they used to these days. They just kind of buckle pretty easily in this time. But yeah, Jesse's dead, as we already noted from here. And of course, this leads to a final confrontation between Ellie and Abby, who pretty much says, "We left you to live, and you wasted it." And the story ends with that, flashing to yet another flashback, Seattle, day 1, from the perspective of Abby. Oh, yay. Can't wait to see her side of the story.
That was beautiful.
So, not gonna lie, this was a bit of a uphill trek for me to watch this series. The video game I had mentioned before when I did my last video for the first 2 episodes of The Last of Us, I expressed that it was a bold move with some of the things that were done in that game. That doesn't say that bold always equals that excellent. And for The Last of Us, it doesn't come off excellent at all. And some of the reasons that come into this begin with Ellie being the girl boss the whole time in this. It's just simply not written well. It wasn't written well back then with this girl boss idea, and it sure doesn't age very well even now in this story as well. It's even worse, I think, in this version. At least with Ashley Johnson, there was nuance to her ability to act Ellie even in this age as a older teenager, and you could believe, some of the emotion behind her. But with Bella Ramsey, there is a bit of a problem with her. No disrespect to her, she was absolutely phenomenal in Game of Thrones as the bear, but there is just something about her that just doesn't click as Ellie here. Can she have honed in the idea of Ellie? Absolutely, but for some reason, she phoned in the same dramatic manner in which she presented herself in that of Game of Thrones, and it just doesn't click here at all for me. And then the other problem with The Last of Us is that the way they treat male protagonists here is not in the least bit helpful. It's definitely, for lack of a better way of putting it, and I will put it out there, this is definitely a woke story for the most part. And even more laughable is the fact that even in the game, which was noticeable even back then, and it's still shown even more so here, there are more women soldiers and women in rank for such an apocalyptic world that clearly men are more built to handle in this situation. And what I mean by men, and not necessarily the actor that portrays this particular man, Joel, is a perfect central character to understand the world of The Last of Us in. Ellie helps, but the father-daughter dynamic of this is what adds to it, and that's what is lacking in this. It was a big mistake to take out Joel in this, and adding Abby to this, although she could have been the Darth Vader of this story, ended up being something of a very odd nuance to the story. And I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to give away season 3 if it when that comes out, but there are things you're going to notice as to why they pushed Abby so hard in this. And it goes back to the idea of what I mentioned early on. All in all, I would rate The Last of Us as, I hate to say it, I would say extremely poor. Not down bottom of the barrel poor, but probably under mid. Just not good for the most part. Could this have been better? How? I would mostly say that it needed other actors to help boost Bella Ramsey up a little bit and her character. Maybe Tommy needed a different backstory than what we were given, or even Jesse should not have been killed if that was the case. But maybe some of you have some thoughts on what else could have been done, or maybe you personally think that this was a good series. Like, share, and subscribe, and again, comment down below and let me know what you think of this season's The Last of Us 2, and you best better believe I'll be back.